Hello everyone, Joe from Central Jersey Conrail and N-Scale. Welcome back. So this video is going to be our next operations video. The last video, operating the SA-39, went over extremely well. I was very surprised at how many positive comments I got. I was a little leery going into it, but you know, I got a lot of good suggestions from a bunch of you out there. So let's just go over some of the comments. I'm just going to go right off my phone here and I'll read you some of the stuff. So Greg Bernsky, he replied, and one of the things that he said was about how we ran into the issue where there wasn't enough room for both locomotives to make that switching maneuver on the tail track. And he recommended that, you know, when he was involved with the Chicago Northwestern, that they would routinely split their power and leave a locomotive behind as they went into tight spots. So that was a really good recommendation that I'm considering. Another bunch of good recommendations was from T. Nobles. Apparently, when I was doing my Form D, I committed a major operational error. And what that was when I said I was moving in a southward direction on the main, and I made that backing maneuver to spot those cars and foul the main, yeah, I would have been relieved of duty. Anyway, so what I've done is I've read up on my NORAC rules and also discussing with him some of my options. So from this point forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a Form D that'll give track authority down to the Toms River Industrial, and then we'll cancel that order and do a second Form D to operate in both directions on the Toms River Industrial. So this way that the crew can move back and forth. I wasn't clear on the rules, and apparently reading up on it, when it says you can only move south, you can only move south, and vice versa. So it's kind of like you're traveling down the freeway, you can't stop in the fast lane and go backwards. So I kind of get it now. And T. Nobles also recommended, you know, thinking about going down to just one locomotive for the SA-39, and he was discussing when with his dealings with the Norfolk Southern is that the B-23-7s they would probably have enough horsepower to pull that many cars, so it shouldn't be an issue. And of course I have two B-23-7s that'll fill that need, so I'm going to think about that. So with that, or what Greg was saying about splitting the power on the locomotive consist. And Dexter Dog 62, thanks. I didn't realize until after I did all the shooting. Yeah, we need a lot more tight shots, because them wide shots, I noticed when I was looking at it on the big TV after I posted it, that kind of hard to see some of the maneuvers and some of the cars that were in the back. So yeah, I'm definitely going to do a lot tighter shots on this video. So thanks for pointing that out to me. And Newcastle Railroad Cohen, he was nice enough to put the links up on the comments on the SA-39 for that mechanism using the tortoise to push that pin up to hold them cars. And he also posted a couple other options. I really like the one using the tortoise, and thanks for pointing that video out to me, because I'd watched it years ago and I just forgotten where I'd gotten the idea from. So thanks for refreshing my memory. And also Newcastle Railroad Cohen also suggested about shelves. Yeah, you know what, I didn't think about it when I was doing my design work, but now operating, I can deal with it. It's fine for me, but I know if I have guest operators down here, it's probably going to drive everybody nuts. So once everything's done, and right before I get ready to hang curtains, I'm going to go back and pick some locations to put some shelves in and do them up nice so that they match the fascia and everything. So we'll revisit that, but for the time being, I'm just going to leave everything for, the way it is. So thanks for that recommendation. Okay, so now let's get on to operating the SA-37. So let's talk a little bit about this train. So the SA-37 calls out of Brown's Yard. It runs down the main line to service all the facilities south of Toth. Now, this train was a freelance train, again. It's not part of the Conrail timetable. Okay, so the reason I made a freelance train is because the SA-35 would have normally serviced all customers on the Southern Secondary. And then through the acquisition of and the creation of Conrail shared assets, they abolished SA-35 and then they rolled it all into the SA-31. So because I'm splitting the Southern Secondary in half, and one portion goes north of Toth, and then the Sayrehurst Secondary continues south of Toth, I felt the need to have a train designated to handle the traffic south of Toth, and then the SA-35 just continues on into staging. So that's what the SA-37 does. Okay, so the SA-37 has been on duty now for approximately 2 hours. So we got to get moving here because we got to get our work done so we don't run out of time and we have enough time to make it back to Brown's Yard for the end of the day. Otherwise, we're going to have to lay over the train down in Lakehurst, and the next crew tomorrow is going to have to come back and pick it up. So we're down at Toth. Let's go get our paperwork in order and let's get going so we can get our work done. Okay, so here's the SA-37. They're sitting at Toth ready for their orders. Today's train rates 2 locomotives, a Conrail B23-7, number 1913, and U23B 2719. We have 3 empties. We have 5 loads, and we have a caboose. The reason we have a caboose today is because when we make the backing maneuver into the Clayton pit on the Glidden sand spur, it's a long backing maneuver and you have to cross a grade crossing. So that's what we're using the caboose as a kind of a platform for the conductor on the rear. Okay, so let's start filling out our Form D. We're going to go with the same date for the SA-39 because it's the same operating session. So November 4th, 1988. This will be Form D number C 104. This is to the C&E of number 2719, circle line 2. Operate in both directions on single track between Toth and milepost 65. Okay, also we're going to circle line 13, other instructions and information. Upon completing work, turn train and prepare to move north. Stop train south of turnout at Toth and contact dispatcher. What we're doing differently with this Form D as compared to the last Form D I showed you is on circle line 2. Instead of picking a direction, we're going to use both directions between Toth and milepost 65. This way it gives the crew the authority to make any backing maneuvers that need necessary to switch the industries on there. And also, instead of calling it number 1 track, I'm calling it single track because there's only 1 track here. All the others are passing sidings and runarounds. So that was kind of a little mistake I made on the last one. And then I'm just going to throw this out there this time about we're going to use line 13, and I'm just going to put this little blurb in there about turning their train, being ready to go north. And then because Toth is that turnout where we're sitting, I want to make sure that the train stays south of the turnout to keep the turnout clear. So in case there's any other movements coming off the Southern Secondary, which is to our right of the screen. Okay, so let's go over our switch list for today. We have 3 box cars that are going to be set out at the Nassos. We have a flat car and a gondola that's going to be set out on the Lakewood runaround for JCP&L. And then we have 3 covered hoppers for Clayton on the Glidden Sand Spur. We're also going to be picking up the Milwaukee box car and 2 center I-beam cars from the Nassos. We're going to be picking up 3 loads of sand from Clayton, and then we're going to be picking up a gondola over at the Naval Air Station Lakehurst. And then we got a note on our switch list. There's a customer request that we spot at the north end of the facility for Clayton. So what that means is Clayton only fills their hoppers at the north end of the facility. All of the open gondolas go in the rear of the facility because they're loaders up front, and they don't have any means to move those through the plant. So okay, so now that we got our paperwork in order, let's start heading south. Okay, so now our conductor is going to get off and throw the turnout for the passing siding down at Lakehurst, and we're going to continue proceeding to the end of the passing siding. Okay, so now the conductor is going to throw the turnout for the south end of the passing siding. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull forward, disconnect our engine from the consist, and do a runaround. So what we have to do is we have to pull the caboose and the 3 covered hoppers off the rear. Okay, so now I'm going to pull ahead. Okay, so now the conductor is going to move the turnout. We're back down a couple under these hoppers. Yeah, these hoppers are bouncing around because they still got the old Microtrains pizza cutters on them, so the Atlas Code 55 turnouts don't like that. Okay, so we're in position now, so the conductor is going to operate the turnout so we can back down into the Clayton facility. So we're going to have to stop here. This is where you would stop to protect the crossing, because there'll be a crossing right here for County Route 524. We're going to continue back down into the plant. Okay, so we picked up our 3 loads of sand. Now we're going to go ahead and pull up out of the facility. Okay, we'll drop our caboose here for the backing maneuver. because we don't want to leave the caboose in the plant. Okay, so before we pull out of the plant and reassemble our train for the next move, I want to go ahead and get caught up on my paperwork. So as you can see in the bill box here, this is that customer request that we were talking about. Now, this is in the bill box, so it's kind of like a standing order. It just tells all crews that, hey, spot all the covered hoppers at the north end of the facility, and that's because their loading for the covered hoppers is up at the north end. So I'm going to pull these three waybills for the cars that we're picking up. Now I'm going to take the bills for the covered hoppers that we dropped and put those in the bill box. I'm going to put those right in the front. Okay, so I'm going to update my switch list now. So before we get any further, I picked up the loads of sand at Clayton, and we dropped off the empties. Okay, so now that all our paperwork's in order, we did our car cards and updated our switch list. Now what I need to do is I need to move the locomotives out of the Clayton facility. We'll put the caboose back on the end of the train, and then we're going to head down to the south end of the train because we have to work the Naval Air Station Lakehurst spur. So this is the first time that I'm really using this iPhone for, you know, operations like this, and well, I'm not too thrilled with it. I mean, the Wi-Fi app is really nice for running trains, you know, if you're not doing a lot of maneuvers, and also it's really good for sound locomotives because the function buttons are labeled. So, all right, let's cut this off. I mean, as you can hear in the video, there's a lot of clicking going on because it's just my fingers slipping all over the screen. So, okay, so here we are over at Lakehurst now. This is where they spot the gondolas to load with dirt from the Beaumark cleanup site. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the caboose, leave that here on the passing track. Okay, so we're going to back in here and we're going to pick up the that black gondola. It's actually a BNSF unit, but that's all I have for right now. When the time comes, we'll have to either repaint that or get rid of it. Okay, so now we completed the switching over at Naval Air Station Lakehurst. The Clayton facility is all done. I'm going to get caught up on my paperwork now. That we picked up the gondola. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get updated on my car cards. I'm going to pick this car card out of the bill box, put it back together so it's all ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the locomotives. I'm going to run around to the north end of the train. I'm going to pick it up and we're going to move down into Lakewood so that we can switch to Nassos. Okay, so conductor's going to open the turnout so we can go on to the runaround, and we're going to pull on down. Alright, so we'll open up the turnout so we can pull back out at the other end of the runaround. We'll pull forward. Alright, so I'm going to cut it off here. We're going to pick up those empties over at the Nassos. Back in. Okay, so now we have to drop the 3 box cars over at the Nassos. So cut it off back there. I'll pull forward. Okay. We'll back in. Okay, so again, we're going to get caught up on our paperwork. We dropped the 3 box cars at the Nassos, and we picked up the 3 center I-beams. Now what we have to do is the gondola and the flat car on the end, they got to be spotted on the runaround for JCP&L. So let's get to work on that, and then we'll be ready to get our train ready for northward movement. Okay, so let's spot these 2 cars here, and while I'm doing that, let's talk about this. So JCP&L was Jersey Central Power and Light. They normally got telephone pole loads here. Now, those aren't telephone poles, they're pipes, right? Well, for right now, until I can get some cars together, some suitable models, and I'm just going to use these pipe loads to be a stand-in for telephone poles. So what would happen was they would spot those cars there, and JCP&L would come up with a boom truck and just pick up the poles off the cars. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull forward and get lined up to go north on the main line. Okay, so before I go ahead and call the dispatcher to cancel our Form D and get ready to move north, let's go make sure our paperwork's all in order. So we spotted the 2 pole cars for JCP&L. So all of our work is complete on our work list. Let's go over and we got to do our waybills. So we picked up these 3 beam cars, and we dropped these 3 box cars. Okay, and then we dropped these 2 cars on the runaround. Okay, so I'll put everything together and we'll clip it so we're ready to go. Okay, so our train's reassembled. We're at the position indicated on our Form D, and we're ready to go north. So we'll call the dispatcher and get the Form D canceled, and get our new Form D to head back to Brownsville. So we're going to end this session here. Okay, so there you have it. So that's the SA-37. So little lessons learned this time around. I think the SA-37, I need to trim it down just a little bit, maybe 1 car or 2 car, because you know what ended up happening, you didn't see off camera, was I was about 2 or 3 car lengths past Toth in order to clear the switch for Nassos. So, and then also another thing I'm learning is blocking. I didn't block the train properly. Maybe it would have worked better if I had the Nassos cars blocked to the other end of the train. I had them in direct opposite. So, you know, again, we're learning as we go, and that's really what it's all about, you know. And I thank everybody out there for all their recommendations and helping me out, because you know, that's why I like doing this. So I like put myself out there for you guys to give me your input so I can see what I'm doing wrong or what I'm doing right. So, and so one other thing about this this session we just did, you know, in the beginning there was it's so much going on with me having to run the camera and make sure everything's running right for the video that I forgot to tell you about the time effective. The time effective was 10:24 on a fast clock, and we were on the clock for 2 hours already. So by the time I finished up was 16:34 on the fast clock. So we did that in about 5 hours or so. I'm just without doing the rough math. So that still gave us plenty of time to make it back to Browns. So because prototypically the SA-35 and later the SA-31, if they would run out of time on the Southern Secondary, they would lay the train over down at the passing siding in Lakehurst, and then they would send a jitney down to pick up the crew, and then the next day they'd send the crew back to go run the train all the way back to Browns. So fortunately we were able to get the time, get our work done in the time allotted, so we didn't have to lay over. So that's why the train's going to be heading back to Browns today. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll take SA-37, I'll put it back in Browns yard. I'll keep everything right where it's at for our next video segment. Next segment's going to be the SA-31 working down in Freehold. So I hope everybody enjoyed watching along, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.